The pyramids of Bosnia, natural hills or man-made wonders. Settle in now. Let your shoulders loosen, let your breath slow, and allow the outside world to fade away. Feel the weight of your body sink into where you are resting, whether it's the softness of your bed or the familiar comfort of your favourite chair. Tonight I want to take you somewhere far from your daily thoughts, somewhere where the air smells of rain on stone and the wind carries whispers from a forgotten age. Before we begin, tell me, where are you listening from? A small village tucked between hills? A busy city glowing under night lights? The mountains, the desert, the coast? Share your place so we may imagine this journey together. Close your eyes for a moment and picture it. A valley in the heart of Bosnia, quiet and still under a silver moon. The land here seems to breathe, each hill rising and falling like the slow tide of the earth itself. The grass moves in long, sweeping strokes under the wind, as though the hills wear cloaks of green velvet. At night, a gentle mist pools in the low places, and in the mist, shapes form and dissolve again. Shapes that make you wonder if you're seeing only hills, or something else entirely. You walk slowly along a narrow path, the soil soft and damp beneath your steps. The night feels deep, yet it is not empty. There is a presence in it, something in the way the shadows cling to the slopes, something in the way the stones under your hand feel faintly warm despite the chill in the air. You breathe in, and the scent of earth and moss fills you. Somewhere far below, beneath your feet, there is a sound, not loud, not sharp, but a low and steady hum, as if the ground itself is singing to you. It is here, in this quiet place, that time seems to lose its grip. You cannot tell if this is the present moment or some ancient echo that has risen again. The stars overhead are bright and close, their light silvering the tops of the hills. You reach out and rest your hand on a stone half buried in the earth. Its surface is smooth, worn not only by rain but by the touch of countless hands before yours. The wind curls around you, carrying a faint, almost inaudible note-like breath over a hollow shell. The people of the valley call these shapes hills. They have done so for generations. But some say that long ago, before the forest thickened, before the grass grew deep, these were not hills at all. They say they were something built, shaped by hands older than memory, older than any story still told by firelight. They speak of passages hidden beneath, chambers locked in silence, and stones carved in patterns that the rain could never make. For now, you stand at the base of one such hill. It rises steeply, its sides too even, its slope too perfect to be a mere accident of nature. You tilt your head, following its angle up into the mist. At the top, the sky seems darker, as though it presses closer there. Your breath slows to match the pace of the wind, slow, deliberate, unhurried. A part of you wonders if this place knows you are here, if it watches with eyes too old and deep to be seen. You step forward, the grass brushing against your legs, and feel the ground shift subtly beneath your weight. Not the way soil shifts, but the way something hollow changes its echo when pressed. You pause, listening. The hum is clearer now, almost like the faint resonance of a far-off drum. Your fingertips trail along the stones at the edge of the path, and you notice they fit together too neatly to be random. Somewhere in the distance a night bird calls, its voice sharp against the stillness. It startles you, not because it is loud, but because everything else here is so quiet. You realize that even the insects have fallen silent, as if the valley itself holds its breath. You close your eyes for a moment and let the image form. The slope stripped of grass, the stones bare and gleaming under a sun from thousands of years ago. You see lines, sharp and deliberate, and a shape, one you've seen in books and photographs of deserts far away, a pyramid. The vision fades as the wind shifts, bringing with it the scent of rain again, but the feeling lingers, as though you have brushed against a truth that refuses to stay hidden. You keep walking slowly, your steps matching the rhythm of your breath. The mist thickens, wrapping around you like a soft veil. It is neither warm nor cold, it simply exists, a presence that makes the world feel smaller and more intimate. Somewhere ahead, you hear the faint trickle of water over stone, a stream slipping down from the higher slopes. The sound blends with the hum beneath the earth until you cannot tell where one ends and the other begins. Every so often the path bends, revealing a new angle of the hill. Each time you see it, it feels less like a hill and more like something sleeping under the earth, a shape that is almost ready to wake. You think about the people who have walked here before you, farmers, shepherds, wanderers, some who noticed nothing at all, and others who, perhaps, paused as you have, feeling that same pull, that same quiet question in the air. The night deepens. The moon slips behind a veil of cloud, and the darkness gathers around you. Still, you're not afraid. If anything, the darkness feels like an embrace, drawing you deeper into the valley's secret. The stones at your side are damp now, the first drops of rain beginning to fall. They patter softly on the leaves, the sound blending with the low hum into something like a lullaby. You stop and rest your hand once more against the smooth face of a buried stone. Your mind drifts, the questions forming slowly, as if they are rising from deep water. If these are only hills, why do they feel alive? If they are something more, why has the world forgotten them? And if the world has forgotten, who or what still remembers? The rain begins to fall in earnest now, but the air remains mild. You tilt your face upward, letting the drops touch your skin, and in that moment the valley feels timeless. You're both here and not here, now and long ago, standing at the edge of something vast yet hidden. The wind moves once more over stone, and the hum answers it, as it has for centuries, as it may for centuries yet to come. The rain does not last long. It passes like a whispered conversation, leaving the air fresher, the scent of wet earth rising all around you. The mist lifts in slow curls, revealing more of the valley. Now you can see how the land folds into itself, each slope answering another, as though shaped by a hand that understood balance and symmetry. The moon slides free from its clouded cover, laying a silver path along the crest of the tallest hill, and it is there at the peak that your eyes keep returning. For a moment you simply stand, feeling your breath moving in and out, letting the stillness settle over you again. The hum is softer now, but it has not vanished. It is never gone. It moves under the ground the way blood moves under skin, steady, unseen and necessary. You take a step forward, then another, each one slow, deliberate, as if the ground itself expects you to tread gently. They say the valley was always here, that it has slept under these green blankets for countless seasons. But the elders in the villages, the ones whose eyes have grown dim and whose voices carry the weight of memory, sometimes tell different stories. They speak of a time when the shapes were sharper, when no trees grew on the slopes, when the sun lit the angles of the hills like fire on a blade. They do not say who built them, perhaps they do not know, but they say it was long before their fathers' fathers, long before the first church bell rang in the valley. You imagine one of those elders now, sitting by a low fire in a stone house on the hillside. The air inside smells of wood smoke and herbs hung to dry. He leans forward, his voice low, the firelight catching in his eyes. "They are not hills," he tells her, as if confiding a secret. "They are sleeping giants, stone giants, and if you listen at night you can hear their hearts. You think of the hum beneath your feet and wonder if perhaps he was right." As you walk, the path narrows, edged by thick bushes heavy with the scent of rain. A soft rustling comes from within, just the wind, you tell yourself, though it sounds almost like someone moving. The moonlight catches on something ahead, a pale, flat surface half buried in the slope. You kneel and brush your hand over it. The stone is smooth, with faint, straight lines carved across it. Too straight, too precise to be the work of chance. Your mind flickers to the stories you've read, the reports from men and women who came here with tools and measuring ropes, claiming to have found walls beneath the soil, terraces built with intention. Some of them spoke of patterns that matched the cardinal directions, as if whoever made them knew the turning of the earth and the march of the sun. Others dismissed it all as fancy, as wishful thinking dressed in mystery. Yet here, with your own hand on the cold stone, you cannot help but feel the weight of something intentional. A breeze stirs, carrying with it the faintest trace of wood smoke, perhaps, from a farmhouse far below, or perhaps from somewhere else entirely. You turn your face toward it and see the village lights, small and golden, scattered across the darkness. Down there, life continues as it always has. Doors closed against the night, families gathered under roofs older than memory. Up here, though, the world feels different. The silence is deeper, the shadows older. You move on, the path beginning to climb. The slope is steeper now, and the grass grows shorter, revealing more stones beneath your feet. Some lie in neat, repeating patterns, as though placed there by a careful hand. The hum grows stronger again, not loud, never loud, but present, persistent, like the earth's own breathing. It follows you as you climb, curling into your ears, slipping into the rhythm of your heartbeat. Halfway up, you pause to rest. The view stretches out before you, the smaller hills rolling away into the distance, the forest a dark, rippling mass, the river a faint ribbon of light under the moon. You notice how the larger hills seem to answer each other, their slopes pointing toward one another as though in silent conversation. You wonder if the shape of the valley itself holds some secret, if its arrangement was chosen rather than chanced. In your mind, you begin to peel away the centuries. The grass fades, the trees vanish, the soil retreats, and there it is, a structure of immense stone, its sides smooth, its edges sharp, rising out of the earth like a frozen wave. You can almost hear the sound of tools striking stone, voices calling in a language you do not know, the ring of something vast and purposeful being brought into existence. Then the vision slips away, and the hill is a hill again, green and quiet under the moon. You continue upward, and the air grows cooler. The mist has settled low now, wrapping the base of the hill in white. Up here, above it, the night feels clearer, the stars closer. You reach a broad ledge where the slope evens out, and there you find another stone, larger than the rest. It stands at an angle as if leaning into the hillside, and its surface is marked with shallow grooves. You run your fingers along them and feel how they lead your hand in straight lines, unbroken and deliberate. You think again of the question that drew you here. Why would such a thing be hidden? If this hill truly conceals a structure, why let it be swallowed by time? Perhaps it was simply forgotten. The people who built it lost to some catastrophe. Or perhaps your mind lingers on this. It was meant to be hidden, meant to sleep until the world was ready again. A voice in the wind seems to answer you, though you cannot make out the words. It is not the sharp cry of the night bird or the rustle of the grass. 'Tis softer, like the breath of someone standing just behind you. You turn, but the path is empty. Only the valley lies below, its dark folds touched by silver moonlight. You stay there for a while, letting the night wrap around you. The ledge feels like a place between worlds. Above, the stars in their endless turning. Below, the valley with its quiet secrets. You close your eyes and listen, not just to the hum, but to the spaces between the sounds. They too seem to speak, though what they say is not in any language you know. Eventually you move on, climbing the last stretch toward the crest. Each step feels heavier now, not with fatigue, but with the sense that you are approaching something important. The hum is in your bones, in your breath. The stones beneath your feet are slick with dew, yet they hold firm as though welcoming your tread. When you reach the top, the world opens around you. The valley lies in all directions, a dark sea of rolling forms under the moon. The mist below glows faintly as if lit from within. You stand there, breathing slowly, feeling the wind curl around you. Somewhere beneath your feet, deep within the hill, the hum continues. You wonder if you're the first in years, perhaps centuries, to stand here in silence and listen. You wonder if the builders, whoever they were, stood in this same place, feeling the same wind, hearing the same night. The thought is both comforting and unsettling, and in that quiet, as you gaze across the sleeping valley, you feel it again. That strange certainty that the land is watching, waiting, remembering. The hum seems to swell for just a moment, a single heartbeat of sound before fading back into its endless rhythm. You do not know yet what lies hidden here, or why its story was buried. But you know this: you have stepped into its shadow, and once you have felt the hum, it will never leave you. Morning comes slowly to the valley. The first light does not rush in. It seeps through the mist in pale threads, weaving over the slopes until the green begins to wake beneath it. From the crest where you stand, you watch as the darkness loosens its grip on the hills, revealing shapes you had only sensed in the night. The angles are still there, the ridges still sharp against the softening sky, and now, in the gentler light, they seem even more deliberate. You draw in a long breath. The air carries the scent of damp grass and fresh earth, mingled with the faint sweetness of wildflowers that have begun to open. The valley stretches out before you in quiet layers, the smaller hills leading your gaze toward the horizon, where the mountains rise in a blue haze. Somewhere below, a thin line of smoke curls upward from a chimney, a sign of life in the waking village. You begin the descent slowly, your footsteps quiet against the dew-wet ground. The hum is still there, steady as your heartbeat. In daylight it feels less mysterious, but no less real. You wonder how many have walked here over the centuries, never noticing it at all. Perhaps their ears were too full of their own voices, or perhaps they were not listening for something that does not wish to be found. The path takes you down the eastern side of the hill, toward the edge of the village. Here the grass is shorter, and the stones beneath are more visible. Some lie in flat, wide slabs that break the slope into steps. steps that feel too even, too precise for nature's careless hand. You pause to run your fingers over one, feeling the grooves that time has softened but not erased. By the time you reach the bottom, the sun has lifted above the mountains, casting a warm glow across the valley. The mist clings only to the lowest hollows now, like a memory reluctant to fade. Ahead, the village comes into clearer view. Stone houses with red roofs, narrow lanes winding between them, and the sound of water running somewhere out of sight. As you enter, you feel the change in the air. Here the hum fades, swallowed by the sounds of daily life. The clatter of buckets at the well, the low murmur of voices, the bark of a distant dog. Yet the people move at a pace that suggests they are not in any hurry to outrun the land's quiet rhythm. They nod as you pass, their eyes steady but unreadable, as though they know something they will not say. You find yourself drawn toward the heart of the village, where the houses cluster around a small square. In its center stands a fountain, water spilling gently from a stone spout into a basin worn smooth by years of use. Beside it, an old man sits on a low bench, his hands resting on a cane. His gaze follows you as you approach, and when you greet him, his voice is slow and even, like someone speaking across a great distance. "You came down from the hill," he says, not as a question but as a statement. You nod, and for a moment he simply studies you. Then he gestures to the bench. "Sit. Tell me what you heard." So you do. You describe the hum, the stones, the sense that the place is not simply what it seems. He listens without interrupting, his eyes half closed as if your words stir some old memory. When you finish, he leans forward slightly. "My grandfather used to take me up there," he says. "He told me to walk slowly, to listen. He said the hill would speak if you were patient. But he also told me not to ask too many questions when we came back down. You ask him why, but he only shakes his head. Some things," he says, "are not ready to be answered, and some people are not ready to hear." Before you can ask more, a woman comes to the fountain, her arms full of laundry. The old man falls silent, his gaze shifting away. You take the hint, thank him, and continue on. The village narrows toward the far side, where the houses thin out and the land opens again. Beyond the last house, a dirt track winds toward another hill, smaller than the one you climbed, but no less striking in its symmetry. As you approach, you notice a break in the earth. Along its side, a dark opening, half hidden by hanging roots. It is just tall enough for a person to enter, though you would have to stoop. Something about the darkness inside draws you, yet you hesitate at the threshold. The air flowing out is cool, with a faint mineral scent, like stone that has not seen the sun for a very long time. You run your hand along the edge of the opening and feel the same smoothness you felt on the hill stone shaped by intent. A voice calls from behind you. Turning, you see a boy standing a little way off, a bundle of sticks in his arms. He shakes his head quickly, motioning for you to step away from the entrance. When you ask him why, he only says, "Not there, not now," before hurrying down the path toward the village. The wind stirs, carrying with it the sound of leaves moving high above. You look once more into the darkness of the opening, then step back. The path curves away, leading you instead toward a rise where you can look back over both hills at once. From here, the lines between them seem clearer. The angles echo each other, as though they were drawn from the same plan. It is here, standing between them, that the question rises again in your mind, stronger than before. If these shapes are only the result of time and weather, why do they speak the language of intention? And if they are more than hills, who gave them form and for what purpose? The breeze grows cooler, the sun shifting toward its noon climb. Somewhere deep in the valley the hum seems to answer, faint but steady. You realize you have heard it in every place where the stones lay smooth and deliberate. It is not the sound of wind or water. It is something older, something that has been here since before the first house rose in the village, since before the first word was carved in any book. You turn back toward the village, your mind lingering on the boy's warning. Not there, not now. The words follow you like a shadow, their meaning unclear, but their weight undeniable. Perhaps the time will come to step inside the darkness. For now, the hills themselves seem to ask you to keep walking, to see more, to listen longer. And so you do, following the track as it threads through the folds of the land, each turn revealing another view of the valley, each view deepening the sense that you are walking through a place built not only in space, but in time. The hum keeps pace with you, patient, constant, as though it knows you will not be able to forget it. The dirt track leads you further from the village, and with every step the signs of human life fade. The sound of water from the fountain is gone now, replaced by the whisper of wind weaving through the tall grass. The sky is wide and open above you, a pale blue dome streaked with slow-moving clouds. Ahead, the land begins to rise again, not in gentle folds, but in deliberate geometric slopes that make you pause. This hill is unlike the others you've seen. Its sides are steeper, its lines cleaner, as though nature herself had been guided by a ruler and compass. From this angle, you can almost believe the old whispers that these are not hills at all, but monuments buried under centuries of silence. You walk on, the earth underfoot shifting from soft soil to a firmer, gravelly texture. Here and there the grass thins, revealing stones arranged in a way that feels too precise to be random. The hum is there again, steady, patient. It rises through your feet, up your spine, settling into the quiet centre of your mind. It is then, as you round the side of the slope, that you see the path change. The narrow track becomes a low, terraced ledge, almost like a step cut into the hillside. You run your fingers along its edge and find the surface flat, unnaturally so, the kind of flatness that no stream or wind could shape. Your breath slows as you realize how far these terraces stretch up toward the hill's peak, each one like a stair in a stairway too vast for human scale. In the distance, movement catches your eye. A lone figure approaches from higher up the slope, walking with the slow assurance of someone who knows every stone and turn of the path. As they draw closer, you see that it is a man broad-shouldered, dressed in earth-coloured clothes that blend almost perfectly with the hill. He greets you with a nod but says nothing at first, as though weighing the worth of your presence here. Finally, in a voice as calm as the hillside itself, he asks, "Are you here for the stones?" You answer that you're here to listen, to see what the hills will tell you. A faint smile touches his face. "Then you've come the right way," he says. "Most come with tools, with maps, with questions too loud for the land to answer. But if you're willing to walk quietly, the stones will show you more than you expect." He gestures for you to follow. Together you climb higher, the terraces curving around the hill like ribs in some buried body. The hum grows clearer, its tone deepening as you ascend. At times it seems to echo inside your chest, making each breath feel heavier. "Dr. Osmanagi?" Came here first in the spring of 2005, the man says, his voice steady despite the climb. He stood where you stand now and said this was no hill. He called it the Pyramid of the Sun. The world laughed at him. Some still do. You listen as he recounts the early days, the teams of volunteers digging in the summer heat, the excitement when they uncovered what they believed were massive stone blocks forming the pyramid's sides. He speaks of how the discovery spread quickly, drawing curiosity seekers from across the world. But with the attention came skepticism, even anger, from scholars who insisted the formations were natural. They said it was all geology, the man continues, sandstone and clay shaped by water and wind. They said the blocks were just fractured layers of rock. But you've seen them, you've touched them. Do they feel like chance to you? You think of the terraces, of the straight lines under your hand, and you find no quick answer. The man stops at a wide, flat space midway up the slope. From here, the view is vast, the valley spread out in soft greens and golds, the other hills rising like sentinels beyond. In the distance, you can even see the village where you began the morning, its rooftops small and warm against the land's immensity. This was where the first trenches were dug, he says. They found layer after layer, flat, angled stones laid together like tiles. No one builds like that by accident. But the debate? He shakes his head. The debaters buried more than the soil ever did. A gust of wind moves over the slope, and for a moment the hum rises in volume, as if stirred by the air itself. The man falls silent, his gaze sweeping across the valley. You follow his eyes and notice how the hills seem to align, their peaks forming a pattern you cannot quite name but feel in your bones. 3 main pyramids, he says quietly, the sun, the moon, and the dragon, each facing a precise direction, each connected. If it is chance, then it is the kind of chance that happens only once in a million years. The clouds drift overhead, their shadows sliding across the slopes like slow-moving memories. You find yourself imagining the scene thousands of years ago, the terraces bare, the blocks clean and sharp, the air filled with the sound of tools and voices. In your mind's eye you see them, workers in lines, lifting and setting stones, each movement part of something larger, something they may not have lived to see finished. The man begins to climb again, and you follow. Higher up, the terrace is narrow and the stones seem larger, their edges more distinct despite the centuries. At one point he kneels and brushes aside a thin layer of soil, revealing a smooth, pale surface beneath. Sandstone, he says, but see how it's cut. This is not fracture, this is intention. You touch the stone. It is cool but not cold, as if it holds some quiet warmth from deep within the hill. You wonder if the hum comes from this warmth, or if the warmth is born of the hum. By the time you reach the upper terraces, the air has thinned slightly. The valley below feels far away now, its sound swallowed by the hillside. Here, the hum is strongest. It seems to pass not just through your feet, but through the air itself, vibrating softly against your skin. The man stops at a final flat space, a platform of sorts, from which the view extends in all directions. From here, he says, you can see what they saw. You turn slowly, taking in the sweep of the land. To the east, the pyramid of the moon rises graceful and even. To the west, the dragon pyramid stands heavier, broader, as if guarding the valley. And directly ahead, beyond the misty horizon, you can just make out the line of the river that has wound here since time beyond memory. You close your eyes and listen. The hum is no longer just a sound. It is a presence, vast and patient, wrapping itself around the valley like an endless breath. For a moment you feel as though you have stepped out of your own time and into the heartbeat of something far older. When you open your eyes, the man is watching you. Now you understand why some cannot let this go, he says. It is not just about stones, it is about what they mean. You do not answer. Words feel too small here. Instead, you let the silence and the hum speak for you, holding on to the certainty that you have touched something that was never meant to be entirely hidden. The wind moves again, carrying with it the scent of the river far below, and you realize the climb has only brought you to the edge of the mystery. The rest still lies beneath, waiting. You linger on the upper platform, the hum wrapping itself around you like a slow-moving tide, but eventually the man who guided you begins the descent. His movements are quiet, unhurried, as though each step is a conversation with the hill itself. You follow, the air cooling as you go, the terraces and stones passing by like pages in a book whose meaning you are only beginning to read. When you reach the base, the man stops and turns toward a narrow path that skirts the foot of the slope. If you wish to hear the other side of the story, he says, follow this to the village of Kraljevo Polje. There is a geologist there. He will tell you why this is nothing but stone and time. The path winds between small fields and clusters of young trees. The sun is high now, the light gold and strong, drawing sharper outlines on the slopes. From here, the pyramid of the sun looks almost ordinary, a green rise like many others, but you know now how much can hide beneath such a surface. The hum has faded with distance, but every so often a faint pulse reaches you, like the echo of a heartbeat you've left behind. It takes the better part of an hour to reach Kraljevo Polje. The village is smaller than the first one you visited, only a handful of houses, each built of weathered stone, their windows reflecting the sky. You find the geologist sitting in the shade of a grapevine-covered porch, his table scattered with notebooks, maps, and a chipped mug of tea. He greets you politely but without warmth, gesturing for you to sit. His eyes are sharp, quick to measure. You've been to the hill, he says. Again, it is not a question. You confirm it, and he leans back in his chair. Then you have heard the stories. I suppose they sound convincing in the moment when you're standing up there. But stories are not evidence. What you see are sedimentary layers of sandstone and clay. Over time, pressure from the surrounding earth causes them to crack in straight lines. It happens in nature more often than you'd think. His voice is calm but carries a practiced certainty, the kind that leaves little room for doubt. He flips open one of his notebooks and shows you sketches of stone layers. Their sharp angles the result, he explains, of natural fracture patterns. This is textbook geology, he says. Water erodes, frost splits, gravity shifts. You do not need ancient builders to explain a hill. You listen carefully, studying the drawings. The shapes are familiar terraces, blocks, even the flat surfaces you touch yourself. But here they are framed in the language of natural processes, each curve and angle accounted for by patient erosion over thousands, even millions of years. The geologist pours more tea and continues. People see patterns where they want to see them. They stand on a hill and think it must be a pyramid. But nature has been carving shapes far longer than humans have been stacking stones. This valley has been here since the Pleistocene. If you strip away the romance, the answer is simple. These hills are geology, nothing more. Outside, a soft wind moves through the grape leaves, the sound like paper turning. You look out at the distant slopes, now blurred slightly by the midday haze. They do not seem less mysterious for his words, only different, as though the valley holds two truths at once, each depending on how you choose to see. The geologist notices your gaze. "I understand the appeal," he says. "People like stories. They like to think they've found something the experts missed. But science is not about what we like. It's about what we can prove. And so far, there is no proof of any pyramid here. Only rock." You thank him for his time and leave the porch, his measured certainty still in your ears. As you walk back through the village, the question settles deeper into you. Can something be only rock and still hold a story? The path homeward is quieter. The fields stretch wide. The grass is moving in soft waves under the wind. In the distance, you see the pyramid of the moon for the first time in daylight. It rises less steeply than the sun. It slopes gentler, its peak crowned with a cluster of trees. Even from here, there is a sense of symmetry, of balance, though you can imagine the geologist calling it coincidence. You turn toward it, letting the path bend in its direction. The closer you come, the more the hum returns, not as strong as on the sun, but still there, like a voice speaking from a long way off. You stop on the hillside and sit, letting the grass brush your arms, the sound of the wind filling your ears. The two versions of the valley's story sit side by side in your mind. One is precise, measured, confident in the slow, relentless work of nature. The other is older, stranger, rooted in whispers as patterns that seem too exact to be accidents. You realize both share something important. They are built on time. One counts it in geological ages, the other in human generations long vanished. From where you sit, the moon and sun stand across from each other like quiet sentinels, their shapes answering in silence. The river curls between them, glinting in the afternoon light. You think of the man who guided you up the sun, speaking of alignments and purpose, and of the geologist, speaking of pressure and erosion. Their voices are as different as stone and wind, yet each has left a mark in you. The shadows grow longer, the day beginning to turn. You stand and start down the slope toward the narrow path that will take you back to the village. As you walk, the hum seems to follow, soft but steady, threading between the certainty and doubts that now fill your thoughts. When you reach the main track again, you pause and look back. The hills are quiet, their green faces unreadable in the low light. Perhaps the geologist is right, and they are nothing more than nature's careful work. Or perhaps there is something beneath, something the earth has kept for itself, waiting for the right moment to be seen again. The wind moves over the grass, carrying with it the faintest trace of that low, endless vibration. You walk on, the sound following you until the village walls rise ahead, their stones glowing warm in the last gold of the sun. Evening comes to the valley with a gentleness that makes you forget how quickly the day has passed. The air grows cooler, the sky deepening into shades of amber and violet. The village seems to shrink into itself as the sun lowers, smoke curling upward from chimneys, the scent of wood fire and bread carrying across the narrow lanes. You step away from the houses and toward the open land again, drawn back to the slopes as if something in them refuses to release you. The pyramid of the moon rises ahead, its form softened by the fading light. The geologist's words still echo in your thoughts, but they mingle now with the memory of the terraces on the sun, the stones beneath your fingers, the hum in your bones. This time you approach from a different angle, crossing a stretch of meadow where the grass stands tall and dry. The ground here is uneven, dotted with pale stones that seem to lie in clusters rather than scattered at random. You stoop to turn one over and find its underside smooth, too smooth for something that should have lain here untouched for centuries. Farther on, you notice something stranger still. A portion of the slope ahead is bare of grass, as though the soil has slipped away to reveal the surface beneath. It is not the jagged, irregular surface of fractured rock, but a broad, flat plain, tilted at an angle and patterned with straight seams. You run your palm across it and feel how the lines sink into the stone in perfect, parallel rows. The sensation is unmistakable. This was shaped. You crouch and trace the seams, noticing that some of the blocks are fitted so closely together you cannot slide even the edge of a blade between them. The surface is weathered, yes, but its structure is precise, deliberate. The geologist voice whispers in your mind fractures, sediment, erosion, but your senses are telling you something else. The air is still, yet you think you hear the faintest shift beneath you, like a far-off movement in the earth. The hum is there again, muted, as though, coming from deeper below than before. You close your eyes and let it flow upward through your hand on the stone into your arm until it reaches the quiet place behind your ribs. When you open your eyes, the light has thinned, the shadows lengthening into the seams between the stones. You step back and notice that the surface you've been studying is aligned, not with the slope of the hill, but with something beyond it. Turning slowly, you see that its edge points directly toward the distant peak of the Pyramid of the Sun. You remember the man's voice, speaking of alignments, of structures positioned with intent. Perhaps coincidence, as the geologist would say, or perhaps the remnant of a plan too large to see from any single place. As you continue upward, more anomalies reveal themselves. Here, a flat ledge that mirrors another far below. There, a cluster of stones arranged in a curve so even it feels like the arc of a circle. You begin to see the hill differently, not as a single shape, but as a layered form, each part answering another, the whole built from repeating patterns. Halfway to the crest, you come to a place where the slope dips inward, forming a shallow hollow. At its center lies a single block, larger than any you've seen so far, resting at a slight angle, as if it once belonged to a greater structure. The edges are still sharp, the surface marked by shallow grooves that run from one corner to another in a perfect diagonal. You press your hand against it and feel a warmth there, faint but distinct, as if the stone has kept the memory of the sun long after it set. A rustle in the grass draws your attention. You turn to see a woman standing at the edge of the hollow watching you. She's older, her face lined but her eyes bright and alert. She steps closer without hesitation. "You've found one of the markers," she says. Her voice is low but certain, carrying the tone of someone who knows the land's secrets. You ask her what she means, and she kneels beside the stone. "These blocks are not scattered," she says. "They're placed. If you know how to follow them, they lead you." She points toward the horizon, toward the space between the Sun and Dragon Hills. "There are lines," she continues, "not just here on the surface, but beneath. Tunnels, chambers, places where the earth changes its voice. Most people don't listen long enough to hear it. You think of the hum." She nods as if reading your thoughts. "Yes, that sound is the key. Follow it, and it will take you where the eyes cannot." Before you can ask more, she rises and begins walking up the slope, her steps quick and sure. You follow, the grass brushing against your legs, the hum growing more distinct with each step. It feels almost like a guide now, an invisible thread pulling you towards something just out of reach. Near the crest, the woman stops beside another exposed section of stone. This one is even larger than the first, its face marked with a grid of shallow depressions. Some say these are just weathered patterns, she says, but they match others far from here, places where no geologist will tell you the full story. She crouches and places her palm flat against the grid. Once, there was no soil here, she says, only the stone. It caught the sun in a way that made the whole hill shine. People could see it from far down the river. Her eyes close for a moment, as if she's watching something long gone. You ask her if she believes the hills were built. She smiles faintly. Belief is not the point. What matters is what the land remembers. The last light fades from the sky as you reach the top. The valley lies below in shadow, the peaks of the other hills catching the final traces of gold. From here, the alignments are clearer. You can see the way the slopes answer each other, the way the spaces between them form deliberate shapes. The hum is strong now, almost a presence beside you. It fills the silence between you and the woman, wrapping the moment in a stillness that feels both fragile and unbreakable. When you finally turn to speak, she's already walking away, her figure blending into the deepening dark. You watch her disappear into the slope, unsure if you will see her again. Alone now, you stand at the crest. The stones under your feet warm from the day, the hum steady in the air. You think of the geologist, of the man on the sun, of the woman who speaks of lines and memory. The valley seems to hold all their voices at once, none silencing the others, each carrying a part of something greater. The stars begin to show, faint at first, then brighter, as the last of the sun's light slips away. You stay until the air grows cold, until the hum becomes the only sound you hear. Then you start down the slope, the path before you lit by the pale wash of moonlight. In the distance, you see the dark mass of the Sun Hill, the river gleaming faintly between. And though the night is quiet, you carry the sense that the valley is speaking to you in its own way through stone, through shadow, through the spaces where the earth still remembers. The moon is high when you return to the village, its pale light spilling over the rooftops and into the narrow lanes. Most windows are dark now, and the voices of the day have fallen away, replaced by the soft creak of wooden shutters and the faint rustle of wind through the grapevines. You should be tired, but the hum in your chest feels stronger than any call to sleep. It pulls you onward, past the square with its silent fountain, past the last house at the edge of the road, toward the open field where the grass bends like waves under the night air. Beyond the field lies the dark mouth of a path you did not take before. It slopes gently downward between the roots of old trees, their trunks leaning together as if whispering to one another. You follow it without hurry, letting your steps match the slow rhythm of your breath. The further you go, the more the sound of the hum seems to change, not louder, but layered, as though other tones are joining it from far below. The path ends at a low mound overgrown with ivy and thorn. At first it looks like nothing more than a rise in the ground, but as your eyes adjust to the shadows, you see the shape of an opening narrow, arched, framed by stones half swallowed by moss. The air flowing out is cool and damp, carrying with it a mineral scent that settles deep in your lungs. You crouch and peer inside. The darkness is complete, swallowing the silver light of the moon after only a few steps. The hum is stronger here, resonating faintly in the stone around the entrance. For a moment you think of the boy you met on the path, his quick warning, "Not there, not now." But now feels as close as you may ever be to whatever lies beneath. Stepping inside, you feel the temperature drop, the coolness wrapping around you like a deep pool. The floor is uneven, a mix of packed earth and flat stones that seem to form a faint path. The walls are close at first, then widen into a narrow corridor. Your fingertips brush the stone on either side. It is smooth in places, but in others marked by shallow grooves, as though worn by tools or the repeated touch of hands long gone. The hum is no longer only in your chest, it is in the air itself, a constant presence, low and steady. It makes the silence feel alive, as if the tunnel is breathing with you. You take each step slowly, listening, feeling the slight give of the earth underfoot. Somewhere far ahead, there is the sound of water, a steady drip, as patient as the hum. The corridor turns, leading into a wider space. Here, the ceiling arches high enough that you can stand fully. The walls are lined with stacked stones, some small enough to fit in your palm, others broad and heavy, each one placed with a precision that does not match the randomness of a natural cave. There is no mortar between them, yet they hold together as if fused by time itself. In the center of the space lies a massive block, rounded at the edges, its surface covered in faint winding lines. You kneel beside it and trace one of the lines with your finger. It twists and curves, doubling back on itself, forming a pattern that feels purposeful though its meaning escapes you. The stone is warm to the touch, warmer than the air around it, and for an instant the hum seems to swell. A sound behind you makes you turn, a soft footstep, or perhaps the shifting of a loose earth. But the corridor is empty. You wait, listening, the hum filling the silence, the dripping water marking the slow passing of moments. You move deeper into the tunnel, the air growing heavier, the walls narrowing once more. The floor begins to slope slightly downward. You notice how the hum changes again, still steady, but now with a faint echo, as though it is bouncing from chamber to chamber far beyond your reach. At one point, the wall opens into a small alcove. Inside, a series of flat stones lean against the wall, each one shaped into a rough rectangle. You lift one carefully. It is lighter than it looks, and when you tilt it toward the dim light from the corridor, you see fine etchings along one edge. They are too faint to read, worn nearly smooth by time, but the deliberate spacing tells you they are not random scratches. You replace the stone as it was and continue on. The tunnel bends again, and suddenly the space opens into a larger chamber. Here the walls are smoother still, and in the center, a single column rises from floor to ceiling. It is not carved with figures or symbols, but with lines, hundreds of them, intersecting, forming patterns that seem to shift when you change your angle. You circle it slowly, your fingertips brushing its cool surface, feeling the way the hum grows stronger the closer you stand to it. You close your eyes and place both palms against the column. The hum deepens, and for a heartbeat, you feel as if you are not standing underground, but somewhere vast and open, under a sky you cannot see. A vision flashes, a brief, impossible image of the hills as they might have been. Bare stone gleaming in the sun, people moving in long lines along the terraces, carrying tools, chanting in low, rhythmic voices. Then it is gone, leaving only the steady hum and the cool stone under your hands. You stand there for a long while, unsure of how much time has passed. The air is so still that it feels like the chamber is holding its breath along with you. When at last you step back, the hum settles again into its background rhythm, patient as ever. The way forward narrows into a smaller passage, but the air beyond feels different, drier, warmer, as if leading upward. You follow it until the slope begins to rise beneath your feet. Eventually a pale light appears ahead, faint but growing. You emerge into a small hollow at the base of another hill, the moonlight spilling in through a screen of leaves overhead. The night air feels warm after the tunnel's cool depths. You breathe deeply, listening to the quiet outside. The hum is softer here, muffled by the earth, but you know now how far it reaches. You look back toward the dark opening you came through, almost expecting to see the woman from the moon hill or the boy from the path standing there. But there is only the stillness, the leaves shifting gently in the breeze. You start walking back toward the village, the grass whispering under your steps. Above you, the stars have multiplied, filling the sky with a slow, silver drift, and beneath your feet the hum continues, threading through stone and soil, carrying its secret through the long corridors of the earth. You realize as you walk that the valley is not silent at all. It speaks in tones too low for most to notice, in patterns too slow for most to follow. And now that you have heard it, you will never again mistake its quiet for emptiness. Dawn comes quietly, as if the valley wishes not to disturb the dreams of those still sleeping. You are awake, before the first light breaks over the horizon, lying on the narrow bed in the small guest room of the village house that has taken you in for the night. The air smells faintly of wood smoke and bread left to rise. Somewhere beyond the thin walls, a rooster calls once, then falls silent. You rise and step outside into the cool morning. The mist is thicker than yesterday, clinging to the ground like a low, drifting tide. It softens the shapes of the hills until they seem half-formed, as if the land is still deciding what it will be for the day. The hum is there, faint but constant, threading through the quiet in a way that now feels almost familiar. The villagers are slow to appear, moving with the calm precision of people who have repeated these mornings all their lives. You follow the main track until you find the man from the Pyramid of the Sun, standing by a wooden cart laden with tools. He greets you with a nod. "You've been underground," he says simply. You tell him of the tunnels, of the column in the chamber, of the lines carved into the stone. He listens without surprise, as if you have only confirmed something he already knew. "Those tunnels," he says, "are older than the soil above them. Some say they were built to connect the pyramids. Others think they were part of something greater, a network stretching beyond this valley." He begins walking toward the open fields and you match his pace. The grass is wet against your boots, the mist beading on your sleeves. "If they were built," you ask, "then who built them, and when?" The man glances toward the Sun Hill, now just a dark outline in the mist. The official answer is, no one, not in any time we record. They'll tell you what the geologist told you, that they're natural caves widened by erosion. But erosion doesn't place stones in perfect alignment. It doesn't carve grids into blocks or shape pillars that hum. You walk in silence for a time, listening to the steady squelch of your steps in the damp soil. The mist begins to lift, revealing the gentle rise of the next hill ahead, the one the man calls the Pyramid of the Moon. Its form is softer than the sun's, its terraces less defined, but there is still a symmetry to it that the eye catches without effort. At the base, he stops and turns to you. "Some believe these were built by people like us," he says. but much older than any known civilization. Others think they were made by a culture far more advanced than we are now, and that something happened to wipe them away. You ask what he believes. His eyes narrow slightly, as if weighing whether to answer. "I believe the stones tell the truth if you know how to listen," he says at last. "But their language is slow, and most people don't have the patience for it." The climb is gentle at first, the path winding between patches of low shrubs. Here and there, the ground breaks open to show flat surfaces beneath stone plains, tilted at angles too consistent to feel random. You pause to touch one, feeling the warmth it has gathered from the morning sun. The hum is faint here, like a voice speaking from far away. Halfway up, the man leads you off the main path to a low shelf in the slope. Beneath a thin covering of soil lies a line of stones, each one shaped into a rough rectangle. They fit together without gaps, the edges worn but still sharp in places. "This," he says, crouching to brush away the dirt from one corner, "is not geology. This is architecture." You kneel beside him, running your hand along the seam between two stones. It is too precise, too deliberate. The geologist's explanation feels smaller here, like a garment that does not quite fit. "These stones," the man continues, "are older than the river below us. Some have tried to date them, but the results are inconvenient, too old for history as we tell it." You ask him about the purpose of the pyramids, if they were truly built. He looks out across the valley, his gaze settling on the distant Dragon Hill. "Power," he says quietly. "Not the power of kings or armies, the power of the earth. Energy in a form we've forgotten how to use. The hum you feel, it's not an accident. It's the heart of the design." The words linger in your mind as you follow him upward. The terraces become more distinct here, their edges forming clean lines against the slope. At the crest, the view opens across the entire valley. The mist has burned away, revealing the sun and dragon in perfect alignment with where you stand. You can see the river glinting between them, its path curving as if in deference to their placement. The hum is stronger at the peak. It rises and falls in slow waves, like the breath of something vast and unseen. You close your eyes, and for a moment, the world beyond the valley seems to fade. You imagine standing here thousands of years ago, the slopes bare and gleaming, the air alive with a resonance that carried for miles. When you open your eyes, the man is watching you. "Now you see," he says, "why the debate is more than academic. If these are natural, then they're just hills. But if they're not," he lets the thought hang in the air, "then we must change the story of where we came from." You think of the geologist's careful certainty, of the woman who spoke of lines and memory, of the tunnel's silent chambers. The valley's truths do not seem eager to reveal themselves all at once. As you begin the descent, the man tells you of others who have come here, teams of scientists, seekers, skeptics, and believers. Some left with nothing but photographs and questions. Others returned again and again, unable to let go of the pull the place exerts. At the base, he stops and looks back up the slope. "You should visit the dragon next," he says. "It will tell you something the others cannot." You part ways near the edge of the village, his figure soon lost among the winding lanes. The rest of the day passes in a haze of quiet thought. You walk the paths between the houses, watch the river as it moves in slow glittering arcs, and feel the hum rising faintly from beneath the ground no matter where you stand. By evening the light softens again, painting the hills in shades of copper and shadow. The dragon waits beyond the far ridge, its slopes already touched by the cool blue of oncoming night. You realize you're ready to hear what it has to say. The path to the dragon begins where the last houses of the village give way to open pasture. The air feels different here, cooler, sharper, as if the wind has travelled farther to reach you. Long grass sways in wide arcs, whispering over the ground in rhythms that seem to match the hum you now know so well. The hill itself rises in the distance, broader than the sun and the moon, its slopes covered in darker vegetation that catches the light in muted shades of green and bronze. You walk alone, the fade in sunlight casting your shadow long and thin across the uneven ground. The dragon looms larger with each step, its flanks catching the last gold of the day. It has a heaviness to it, a grounded presence, as though it has sunk deep into the bones of the earth over centuries. Yet there is also a watchfulness about it, as if it has been waiting for this moment, for you. The closer you come, the more you notice small changes in the landscape. Stones half buried in the soil, set in patterns that are too regular to be mere chance. A narrow line of raised earth, curving gently away from the base, as though marking the remnants of some ancient boundary. Even the vegetation seems to follow invisible lines, clustering in strips and arcs that echo the hill's own contours. At the foot of the dragon, the hum greets you again. It is different here, lower, slower, as though it carries more weight. You pause, letting it sink into you, feeling how it moves not just through the ground, but through the air itself, like a deep note struck on an unseen instrument. A narrow track winds up the slope, shaded in parts by clusters of low trees. The climb is steady but not steep, giving you time to notice the details along the way. Here, a section of stone steps half swallowed by soil. There, a ledge where the grass grows thin and reveals a flat expanse of fitted blocks. The seams between them are so fine you could trace them with a single fingertip. Halfway up, you find a spot where the view opens across the valley. From here, the sun and moon stand clearly in sight, their peaks aligned in a way that seems too exact to be an accident. The river glitters between them, winding in a path that almost appears drawn rather than carved by nature. The hum from the dragon seems to answer theirs, the three tones blending into a resonance you feel deep inside your ribs. You press on, the track curving around to the western face of the hill. The light is fading quickly now, the sun dipping behind the distant ridges. Shadows lengthen over the terraces, making their edges sharper, more defined. You stop at one and rest your hand on the stone. It is cool, the surface rougher than the others you've touched but still unmistakably shaped. A sound reaches you, faint at first, then clearer. Footsteps on stone, steady and deliberate. You turn to see a man approaching from further up the slope, his figure outlined against the deepening sky. He wears a heavy coat and carries a lantern, its light spilling over the path in a soft amber glow. "You're here late," he says when he reaches you. His voice is low but carries easily in the still air. You tell him you wanted to see the dragon before nightfall. He studies you for a moment, then nods. Most don't come here alone. The dragon has a presence. Some say it listens, some say it remembers. He gestures for you to follow him upward. The lantern casts shifting shadows over the terraces, revealing more details in their lines' edges, worn but still precise, corners that meet in clean angles. "My grandfather used to tell me stories," the man says as you climb. "He said this hill was once the back of a creature so vast it blocked out the sun. When it lay down to rest, the earth grew over it, but it never stopped breathing. You glance at him, wondering if he speaks in pure myth or something closer to belief. He only smiles faintly, the lantern light catching in his eyes. The hum, he adds, is its breath. Always has been. Near the crest, the path widens into a flat area ringed with stones. The man sets the lantern on one of them, its light pooling warmly in the circle. From here, you can see all three pyramids at once, their peaks glowing faintly under the rising moon. The hum is strong here, steady, resonant, as if the dragon is indeed speaking to the others. This is where the old gatherings happened, the man says. Not in my lifetime, not even in my father's. But the stories say people came from far away to stand here, to feel the three speak together. Some believed the hills could heal or reveal truths you couldn't see with your eyes. Others thought they were a doorway, though, to where no one could say. You walk slowly around the ring of stones, feeling the vibration under your feet. It is not just in the ground now, it is in the air, in the space between each breath. You imagine what it might have been like to stand here centuries ago, surrounded by voices chanting in the dark, the hum rising to meet them until the whole valley seemed to sing. The man picks up the lantern and begins walking toward a narrow cut in the slope just below the crest. There's something you should see, he says. The cut opens into a shallow cave, its walls lined with fitted stones that disappear into shadow. The air here is warmer, and the hum seems to pulse, rising and falling in slow intervals. At the back of the cave, a single large stone slab leans against the wall. The lantern light reveals faint carvings, interlocking triangles, circles and lines that seem to form a map or diagram. You trace one of the lines with your finger. It leads from a circle at the center to three smaller shapes arranged in the same positions as the sun, moon and dragon. It's been here as long as anyone remembers, the man says. Some think it's just a coincidence, shapes that mean nothing. Others think it's a key something that explains why the hills were built, or why they're here at all. You study the carving in silence, the hum steady behind it. The shapes seem to shift slightly when you move, as though they hold more than one meaning depending on how you look. Outside, the night has deepened. The stars are sharp above the valley, the moon bright enough to cast silver lines across the terraces. The man walks with you back to the ring of stones, then stops. The dragon doesn't tell its story quickly, he says, but if you listen long enough, you might hear it. He leaves you there, his lantern light fading down the path until it is swallowed by the dark. You stand alone on the crest, the three peaks watching each other in the moonlight, the hum rising and falling like the breath of something vast and unending. You know now that the valley holds more than one kind of truth, and that the dragon has given you only a fragment of its own. The rest lies hidden, deep in stone and shadow, waiting for those who will listen without hurry. The next morning the valley greets you with a rare clarity. The air is crisp, the mist scattered into thin drifting veils that reveal the hills in their full deliberate shapes. The sun, the moon and the dragon stand in quiet harmony, their lines etched sharp against the pale blue of the sky. You sit at the edge of the village, a warm mug in your hands, watching the light spill across the slopes as if unveiling something sacred. The hum is there, fainter in the open air than it was upon the dragon's crest, but present nonetheless. You have begun to notice that it's not a single tone, but a layering of tones, some so low you feel them more than hear them, others almost too high to catch. Together, they form something like a chord, a sound that feels less like it was made and more like it has always been. Today, you have a purpose, to understand the alignments the man on the sun spoke of, the way the hills seem to answer one another and the sky. You set out toward the river first, its glinting surface like a silver thread drawn between the land's great shapes. The path follows its curve, and with each turn, new angles appear. The moon framed perfectly between two ridges, the Dragon's Peak lining up with a gap in the far mountains. A small wooden bridge crosses the river at a narrow point. Standing in the middle, you can see the sun directly ahead, its peak aligned with the rising point of the morning sun itself. You remember the man's quiet conviction when he spoke of this, how he said the hills faced with intent. From here, the symmetry is undeniable. The sun is not simply in the east, it is exactly where it must be to greet the day. You leave the bridge and walk along the far bank until you find a patch of open ground with a clear view of all three peaks. You sit, pulling from your bag a simple compass and a small worn notebook. The compass needle steadies, and you note the bearings. Sun to the east, moon to the north, dragon to the southwest. The angles form not a random scattering, but a precise geometry, like points of a great triangle laid upon the earth. Closing your eyes, you imagine that triangle drawn in stone rather than on paper. Its lines connecting the hills not through surface paths but through something hidden beneath tunnels, perhaps like the ones you walked before. The thought makes you open your eyes again, scanning the ground between the hills for anything unusual. That is when you see it, a low rise in the grass, almost invisible unless you stand just so. You walk to it, and the shape becomes clearer, a long, shallow mound stretching farther than the eye can follow. You kneel and touch the soil. It feels loose in places, as though it hides something beneath. When you press your ear to the ground, the hum is stronger, vibrating faintly against your skin. You stand and follow the mound, tracing its line toward the base of the moon. It leads you to a cluster of standing stones, weathered and leaning, but still upright. They form a rough circle, each one facing inward toward a flat slab at the center. The slab is angled upward, and you realize it would catch the first light of sunrise perfectly. Kneeling beside it, you notice shallow carving straight lines crossing in patterns that echo the geometry you've been tracing in your mind. Some lines point toward the sun, others toward the dragon. A few align with points on the horizon where the mountains break, as if marking some long-forgotten event in the sky. As you study the slab, the air changes. The hum deepens, as though acknowledging your presence. For a moment it is as if the hills themselves lean in, watching to see what you will do. A voice interrupts the stillness. You see it, don't you? You turn to find the woman from the Moon Hill standing just beyond the circle. She steps closer, her eyes bright despite the morning chill. "These stones," she says, "are the key to the valley's rhythm. They're not just markers, they speak to the sun, the moon, and the stars." She walks to the slab and lays her hand upon it. On certain days of the year, the light passes over this exactly, then runs through the circle like water. It touches each stone in turn, always in the same order. That order is the same as the hum. You ask her what she means, and she steps back, motioning for you to stand where she was. "The hum has a pattern," she says. "It rises, it falls, it pauses, then begins again. The light does the same thing over the land, over the stones. If you understand one, you understand the other. Her words settle over you like the mist that clings to the hills. You think of the dragon's steady breath, the sun's bright voice, the moon's gentle resonance. Together, they form something that feels deliberate, intentional, like a song whose notes have been carved into the bones of the earth. You and the woman leave the circle together, following the mound back toward the river. She speaks of stories passed down quietly in the villages, of a time when the valley was a gathering place, not just for those who lived here, but for travellers from far away. They came, she says, because they knew this was a place where the earth and the sky spoke to each other. And where that happens, you can hear more than just the present. You can hear the past, sometimes even the future. At the bridge, she leaves you, walking toward the moon while you turn toward the sun. The day has grown warmer, the air carrying the scent of grass and distant wood smoke. You walk slowly, your mind full of the lines and angles, the hum and the light. The way everything here seems to be part of a design larger than any single hill. When you reach the base of the sun, you pause to look back. The moon and dragon are exactly where they should be, their peaks in perfect conversation with the place you stand. The river threads between them like a line drawn by an unseen hand. You realize then that the alignments are not simply about where the hills are placed. They're about how they connect to each other, to the sky, to the deep hum that flows through the valley without end. And in that moment it feels less like you are walking through a landscape, and more like you are walking through the blueprint of something vast, something that has been waiting for countless seasons for someone to remember how to read it. Night returns to the valley without hurry, the last colours of the sunset fading into a soft indigo that wraps itself around the hills like a blanket. You walk the narrow path toward the village again, but the air feels charged tonight, as if something beneath the surface is waiting. The hum is stronger than usual, still low and steady, but layered with faint harmonics that shift and shimmer in the quiet. It makes you slow your steps, as though moving too quickly might break whatever spell is forming. The villagers' houses glow faintly with lamplight. Most windows are shuttered, yet here and there you see silhouettes moving inside, simple, unhurried motions of people settling into the night. You turn down a side lane and pass the old fountain, its water whispering over the stone lip into the basin below. The sound blends with the hum until you cannot tell where one ends and the other begins. Your destination is not the hills themselves tonight, but something hidden beneath them. Earlier, the woman from the Moon Hill had spoken of places where the Earth's voice could be heard more clearly than anywhere else. Places where sound does not merely pass through stone, but becomes part of it. She told you of a chamber deep underground, a place where voices could travel without losing strength, where a single word might linger in, the air like smoke long after it was spoken. She called it the singing room. The entrance lies beyond the village, in a grove of trees whose roots knot the ground into uneven ridges. You find it by the faint trail worn into the grass, almost invisible until you are upon it. The air under the trees is cooler, and the light of the moon filters through the branches in pale, broken patterns. The opening is small, almost hidden by a curtain of vines. You part them and step inside, ducking into a low tunnel that slopes gently downward. The smell of earth and stone fills the air, and the hum grows stronger as you go. It is no longer just a sound, it is a sensation in your skin, your bones, even your breath. The tunnel widens into the chamber. At first glance, it is simple, a roughly oval space with smooth walls and a high, arching ceiling. But when you step forward, your own footfalls tell you otherwise. Each sound echoes back to you, not once, but many times, each reflection softer, gentler, until it fades into the hum itself. You stand in the center and speak a single word. It floats out from your lips, fills the chamber, and then lingers, changing as it rebounds, weaving into the low tones that already fill the space. It is like singing into a great, patient instrument that has been waiting for you to play it. Closing your eyes, you listen. The hum is different here, shaped by the chamber's walls into something almost melodic. There is a pulse to it, a rhythm that rises and falls in steady intervals. You match your breathing to it, and before long, you feel yourself drifting, not in thought, but in sensation, as though the stone itself is carrying you somewhere. A faint vibration travels up through the soles of your feet, along your legs, into your chest. It is not uncomfortable. In fact, it feels like standing beside a deep waterfall, the air trembling with unseen force. You wonder if this is what the woman meant when she spoke of energy, of the land's design. You try another sound, this time a low hum of your own. Instantly the chamber catches it, folds it into its own tone and sends it back to you richer, fuller. It feels as though the sound is not leaving you but moving through you in a loop, the chamber and your own body resonating together. Time blurs. You do not know if minutes or hours pass as you stand there, adding your own small voice to the ancient one already singing in the stone. Images flicker in your mind, terraces bright under a high sun, water flowing in channels between them, people moving in long lines carrying something heavy yet precious, a great fire at night, flames dancing against the sharp lines of the slopes, drums, chanting, and always the hum beneath it all, steady as the heartbeat of the earth. When you finally open your eyes, the chamber feels warmer, though you cannot tell if it is the air or yourself that has changed. You walk slowly to the far wall and run your hand along it. This surface is impossibly smooth, yet beneath your fingertips you feel the faintest of patterns, lines intersecting at angles, circles nested within each other. They are too subtle to see in the dim light, but your hand recognizes them instantly as deliberate. You follow one of the lines upward until it curves over your head and disappears into the ceiling. The thought comes to you, unbidden. This chamber was built to be heard, not just for voices, but for something greater, a transmission of sound, of resonance, perhaps even of memory. Reluctantly, you step back toward the tunnel. The hum fades slightly as you leave, but it clings to you like the echo of a dream you cannot quite let go. Emerging into the grove, the air feels lighter, almost fragile after the depth of the chamber's voice. The moon has risen higher now, casting the hills in silver light. The sun glows softly to the east. The moon hill lies quiet and shadowed, and the dragon watches from its distant place. You realize the hum you heard below is the same one that moves through all three. It is simply louder there, more pure, as if the singing room is the heart from which the sound flows outward. As you walk back toward the village, the image of the patterns on the chamber wall stays with you. Circles, lines, intersections, shapes that could just as easily be a map as an ornament. You think of the slab in the dragon's cave, of the alignments traced between the hills. Perhaps they're all parts of the same design, scattered and buried, waiting for someone patient enough to listen long enough to connect them. When you reach the village, the streets are empty. the lamps in the windows gone dark. You pause by the fountain once more, listening to the water's endless fall. For the first time you hear it as more than just a sound. It is part of the valley's song, a high, bright note above the deep tone of the hills. You turn toward your room, the hum following you in the quiet. It is not a sound you will leave behind when you sleep. It will be there in your dreams, threading through them, as constant and ancient as the stones themselves. The morning breaks pale and still, the kind of stillness that feels deliberate, like the valley is holding its breath. You step outside into the cool air, the sky a thin wash of silver above the rooftops. The hills are quiet in the distance, their slopes softened by a fine mist that lingers over the river. But beneath that quiet, the hum is there, steady as ever, threading through the ground like a voice that refuses to fade. You decide to visit the small house at the far edge of the village, the one the man on the sun once pointed out when he spoke of those who'd been trying for years to prove what the hills truly were. The path to it winds past old orchards and stone walls held together more by memory than mortar. Crows move through the trees in small bursts, their wings breaking the morning silence before settling again into it. The house is low and narrow, its walls whitewashed, the roof heavy, with clay tiles darkened by rain. An elderly woman greets you at the door. Her hair is silver, her eyes sharp and alert. She steps aside to let you in without a word, as though she was expecting you. Inside, the air smells faintly of paper and dried herbs. Shelves line the walls, crowded with books, maps, and bundles of yellowing documents tied with frayed string. On the table in the centre of the room lies a spread of photographs, stones, terraces, tunnel entrances, and other shapes half hidden by grass and soil. She gestures for you to sit, her movements precise and unhurried. "I've seen you walking," she says finally, her voice soft but with a weight that commands attention. "You've been listening. You tell her you have, though you're not yet sure what you've been listening to." She studies you for a moment, then begins to gather the photographs into a neat stack. "The sound is only the surface," she says. "It is the part you can sense. But the more dangerous thing is what you cannot hear, not because it is silent, but because it has been made silent." Her hands move to one of the bundles of documents. She unties the string and spreads the pages before you. They are letters, reports, fragments of newspaper articles. Many are in languages you don't recognize, their margins filled with handwritten notes. She taps one page with her finger. "This was from a team who came here in the first years," she says. "They measured the tunnels, recorded the stonework, documented the alignments. Their work never reached the journals. The funding stopped. The archives were closed." She opens another folder. This one contains aerial photographs, the hills seen from high above. In one, faint lines run between the peaks, straight as arrows despite the folds of the land. "They say these are just paths," she murmurs, "but when you overlay them with the old maps..." She slides another image over the first, tracing the lines with her fingertip. "You see?" The overlay reveals a network, not random but organized lines converging on the hills, branching outward like veins. Some reach far beyond the valley, toward distant mountains and the sea. You ask her why. If this is so clear, it is not common knowledge. She looks up from the table, her eyes narrowing. Because it would mean rewriting more than just history. It would mean admitting we have lost something larger than any one place. And there are always those who would rather leave the past buried. Her words remind you of the man who spoke of inconvenient dates, of results quietly set aside. You think of the geologist's certainty and how it now feels less like the whole truth and more like a version shaped to fit. The woman rises and crosses the room, returning with a small wooden box. She sets it on the table and opens it to reveal a collection of stones, each carved with patterns, lines, spirals, and interlocking shapes. The edges are worn, but the designs are still clear. "These came from the tunnels," she says. Not officially, of course. Officially, there is nothing there worth taking. She lets you pick one up. It is heavier than you expect, its surface cool despite the warmth of the room. The carved lines catch the light, their depth and precision unmistakable. You run your thumb along them and feel the same quiet intention you have sensed in the terraces and blocks on the hills. "There are more," she says quietly, "but they are hidden, some with people in the villages, some farther away. We keep them safe because we know they could disappear. We've seen it before, artifacts removed for study that never return, photographs replaced with copies missing their details, even the land itself reshaped so the anomalies are harder to see. You think of the grove where the singing chamber lay, how easily its entrance could be covered by vines and left forgotten." The woman sits again, folding her hands on the table. "Suppression does not always come from force," she says. "It can come from neglect, from pretending not to see, from letting the grass grow back over the stones. That is why the hum matters. You cannot hide it with soil or silence. If you listen, it will lead you." She pushes the box of carved stones toward you. "Take one," she says. "Carry it with you. It will remind you that what is buried is not gone." You choose a small oval stone marked with a single spiral. It fits perfectly in your palm, the curve of the spiral drawing your eye inward. She wraps it in a piece of cloth and presses it into your hand. "When you hear the hum," she says, "remember that it is not only the voice of the earth, it is the sound of what refuses to be forgotten." Leaving her house, you step back into the pale light of the late morning. The hills rise beyond the village, unchanged yet somehow different in the way you see them now. You feel the weight of the stone in your pocket, solid and reassuring. As you walk toward the river, you notice how the hum seems to greet it, as though aware of its presence. You pause on the bridge and look toward the Sun Hill. The mist has burned away completely, leaving its lines clear against the sky. Somewhere deep within it, the same force that shaped the spiral in your pocket is still at work, patient and unbroken. You stay there for a long while, watching the water move under the bridge, feeling the hum thread through stone, soil and air. It is a reminder that some truths, no matter how deeply buried, will always find a way to speak. By afternoon, the sky begins to shift. The bright clarity of morning fades into a muted grey, and the wind picks up from the west, carrying with it a smell you can't quite place. Something faintly metallic, like rain on stone, but sharper. The hills seem to respond to it, their slopes darkening as the clouds gather, their lines more pronounced under the flat light. You take the path leading away from the river, toward a rise where the ground opens into a wide plateau. It is a place the old man by the fountain mentioned once, almost in passing, saying only that it was where the earth remembers its grief. His tone had been measured, as though the words themselves were a test. You hadn't asked him to explain. The plateau is a quiet place, without the terraces or stonework that mark the three great hills, yet it feels just as deliberate. The grass grows low here, bent in the direction of the wind as if it has been leaning for centuries. Small stones are scattered across the surface, each one smooth and pale, as though they were once part of something larger. You pause in the centre, letting the hum settle around you. It is slower here, heavier, with a tone that feels almost mournful. The wind rises, pulling at your coat, and in it you hear faint whispers, fragments of sound that could be nothing more than the air moving over the stones, or could be something older trying to speak. A memory rises unbidden, the woman from the Moon Hill saying that the valley was a gathering place, a place where earth and sky spoke to each other. But the air here feels different, not like conversation, but like remembrance. The first drops of rain begin to fall, darkening the stones at your feet. You walk to the edge of the plateau and look out across the valley. From here, the three pyramids form a pattern unlike anything you've seen from below 3 points in a perfect arc, with the river as a curved line beneath them. It is not the sharp geometry of a triangle, but the sweep of something more organic, like the shape of a wave or the arc of the moon's path across the sky. The rain quickens. You turn back toward the center of the plateau and notice something you missed before, a faint depression in the ground, almost a circle. Kneeling, you run your hand over the grass until you find stone beneath it, smooth, flat, unbroken. You brush away more of the grass and soil and reveal a curve, the edge of what could be a great ring buried just below the surface. You trace it slowly, the rain soaking into your sleeves. The ring seems vast, its arc disappearing under the earth in both directions. As you follow it, the hum shifts, growing more insistent when you're close to the stone, softening when you stray. It is then that you remember the overlay map the old woman showed you. The network of lines converging on the hills. Perhaps this plateau was once part of that design, a place where the lines met, where something stood that is now only memory. The wind carries a long, low rumble of thunder from the west. You stand in the center of the buried ring, the rain now steady around you, and close your eyes. In the rhythm of the drops on your skin, in the pulse of the hum beneath your feet, you begin to sense an image forming, not with clarity, but with the impression of scale. You see the valley as it might have been before the grass and trees bear stone rising under a sun sharper than the one you know. Structures stand where the hills are now, their sides gleaming, their peaks sharp against the sky. The plateau is not empty, but filled with movement lines of people carrying stones, vessels, tools you do not recognize. And beyond them, the river runs higher, wider, its banks lined with more stone. Then the vision changes. The sky darkens, not with night, but with something heavier, something that rolls across it like a wall. The wind tears at the ground. The river swells and surges, its edges breaking. The people scatter, some toward the hills, others toward the river's edge. A sound rises above the wind, a deep, shuddering roar that seems to come from the earth itself. You open your eyes, the rain running down your face. The hum is still there, but it feels altered, charged, as if the land itself is holding on to the echo of that roar. Perhaps this is what the old man meant by grief, the memory of a time when something broke the valley's order, when whatever design was here was undone. You walk to the edge again. The three hills stand silent under the rain, the river winding between them as it always has. Yet you cannot shake the sense that what you see now is the valley's second life, that the first was ended suddenly, leaving these shapes as the only survivors. The thunder comes again, closer now. You turn toward the path, but something in you resists leaving. You take the spiral-marked stone from your pocket and hold it in your palm. The water runs over it, pooling in the carved groove, the spiral gleaming dark in the rain. You wonder if it too once felt the force of that storm, if it lay here on this plateau before being carried into the tunnels. When you finally begin the walk back, the wind is at your back, urging you toward the shelter of the village. The rain has deepened the colours of the land, the grass a darker green, the soil nearly black, the river a silver thread against the grey sky. By the time you reach the first houses, the storm is fully overhead. You step inside the nearest open doorway, a small shed where a man is stacking firewood. He nods at you, wordless, and continues his work as the rain drums against the roof. Standing there, you realize that the valley's hum and the storm's rhythm have merged, their tones weaving together until they are one sound. And beneath it all is the knowledge that the valley has weathered storms far greater than this, that it has carried the memory of a catastrophe for longer than any story has been told. When the rain eases, you step out into the damp air. The hills are veiled in mist again, but now you see them differently. They are not only markers of something that once was, they are witnesses. And you know that somewhere beneath them, the full story of what happened here waits, as patient and enduring as the hum itself. The morning after, the storm feels scrubbed clean, the air sharper, the light clearer. Droplets still cling to the grass, each one catching the sunlight in brief flashes as you walk the track out of the village. The river runs faster today, its voice louder, as if carrying last night's rain toward some distant memory of the sea. The hills, washed of dust, stand darker and more defined, their lines precise against the pale blue sky. You have the old woman's overlay map in your bag, the one with the network of lines stretching from the valley toward faraway places. Something about it has been tugging at your thoughts since she showed it to you. Today you intend to follow one of those lines. Not all the way, perhaps, but far enough to see if it holds more than coincidence. The path takes you along the dragon's western flank, the ground still damp and fragrant with the smell of rain. The hum is steady here, slower and deeper than the sun's voice, almost as if it is still drowsy from the storm. The line on the map runs straight out from this slope toward a ridge that marks the valley's edge. As you climb toward that ridge, the land changes. The grass grows sparse, replaced by low, dry shrubs. The soil shifts from deep brown to pale ochre, scattered with chunks of stone. Some of the stones are ordinary jagged, irregular, but others are too even, too square-edged to have been shaped by erosion alone. You pause to turn one over, brushing away the dirt. The underside is perfectly flat. Beyond the ridge, the land falls into a shallow basin. You stand for a moment looking across it. The far side rises again into a long, narrow hill, but your attention is caught by something in the basin itself. A cluster of stones, arranged in what appears to be a deliberate arc. From here, they look small, but as you descend, their size becomes clear. Each is as tall as your shoulder, thick and solid, their surfaces weathered but not broken. You walk among them, tracing their curve. It is not quite a circle, more like part of a ring, as though the rest lies buried or gone. In the spaces between the stones, the ground is different, harder, packed, with faint traces of what might once have been paving. The hum here is unusual. It is not the steady tone of the hills, but something intermittent, a vibration that comes and goes in irregular pulses, like a conversation you can only half hear. You take the spiral-marked stone from your pocket and hold it near one of the standing stones. The hum sharpens, rising in pitch, then fades again as you step back. You try the same with another stone and feel the same response. It is as if the spiral is answering something here, or waking something that had been sleeping. In your mind you see the map again, the line stretching outward, the hills as nodes in a greater design. This basin, with its arc of stones, sits precisely on one of those lines, midway between the dragon and a distant mark you have not yet visited. You wonder if there are other arcs like this, hidden in fields and forests, each one a fragment of a larger pattern. A movement catches your eye. Across the basin, near the rise of the opposite hill, someone is standing, a tall figure in a long coat watching you. The sun catches on something at their chest, perhaps a clasp or pendant, before they turn and walk out of sight. You start toward the spot, but by the time you reach it, there is no one there. Only the faint impression of footprints in the damp soil leading toward a narrow path into the trees. You follow for a short distance, but the path twists and splits, and soon you're unsure which way they went. The hum is weaker here, the sound of the wind in the branches masking its faint vibration. You stop, listening, then turn back toward the basin. The standing stones seem different when you return to them, less weathered, their lines sharper. Perhaps it is only the change in light as the sun climbs higher, but for a moment you feel as though you are looking at them as they once were. Smooth, unbroken, their positions precise. In that imagined vision, they stand in full circle, each aligned with points in the sky you cannot name. People move among them, adjusting their stance, speaking in low tones, their words swallowed by the stone's own voice. The vision fades, leaving the arc as it is now half complete, silent except for the faint hum you've learned to follow. You sit at the base of one of the stones, letting your back rest against its cool surface. The stone feels alive in a way you cannot explain at warm, but not cold either, as though it exists in a balance between the two. The spiral in your pocket seems heavier now, as if it has absorbed something from this place. When you finally rise, you walk the arc one last time, marking each stone in your mind. Then you climb out of the basin, back to the ridge. From here, the three pyramids are visible again, their peaks quiet under the afternoon light. The basin lies between them and the world beyond, like a forgotten gate. You think of the old woman's words. Suppression does not always come from force. A place like this could vanish from memory in a single generation, hidden beneath grass and the slow patience of time. Yet here it still stands, enough of it above the surface to call to anyone who knows how to see. On the way back, you take a different path along the ridge. The sun is lower now, casting long shadows over the slopes. In one of those shadows, you notice another stone small, almost hidden, but carved with the faint outline of a spiral. It is cruder than the one in your pocket, its edges worn, but the pattern is unmistakable. You kneel and brush it clean, wondering if it was once part of the basin, or if the spirals mark something broader, a language scattered across the valley. You think of the singing room, the slab in the dragon's cave, the carved stones in the old woman's box. Perhaps they are all part of the same script, one written in places rather than on pages. By the time you return to the village, the light has gone gold, the air carrying the scent of evening fires. You pass the fountain and hear the waters fall layered over the hum, the two sounds blending into something almost musical. That night, lying in your narrow bed, you close your eyes and see the overlay map again, the lines and arcs glowing faintly against the darkness. The basin's arc fits perfectly among them, another piece of a puzzle that spans far more than this single valley. And though you cannot yet see the whole, you feel certain that the hum is its key, the one thing that still connects every fragment, no matter how far apart they lie. The next day begins in stillness, but it is not the stillness of sleep. It is the expectant kind, like the air before a bell is struck. You wake with the feeling that something has shifted, though you cannot name what. The spiral stone rests on the table beside your bed, its lines catching the dim light from the small window. You carry it with you as you step out into the cool morning. The village is quiet, the streets empty, except for a stray cat that slips between two houses without sound. In the distance, the Sun Hill glows faintly under the first touch of sunlight, while the moon and dragon remain in shadow. You are drawn not to any of the three peaks this morning, but toward the low ground between them, where the river bends in a slow, deliberate curve. The path there passes through a meadow still heavy with dew, the blades of grass bending under your steps. The hum is softer here, almost hesitant, as though waiting for something to begin. At the river's edge stands a small wooden bridge, its planks worn smooth by years of use. An old man leans against the railing, his hands resting on a carved walking stick. You recognize him as the one who spoke once of the plateau, of the earth's grief. He nods as you approach. "You've been listening," he says, his eyes fixed on the water. You tell him you have, though you still do not understand all that you've heard. "That's the way of it," he replies. "The valley doesn't speak in answers. It speaks in echoes. The trick is knowing which echoes are meant for you." He taps the railing lightly with his stick. "This bend in the river, it has a name older than the village. The translation's been lost, but the meaning was something like the place where voices meet." You lean on the railing beside him, watching the water curl around the bend. The hum rises faintly through the wood beneath your hands, blending with the river's own quiet murmur. "On certain nights," the old man continues, "when the moon is high and the air is still, the sound here changes. It's as if the hills themselves lean closer, and the water carries their voices together." He glances at you. "Some call it a song, others call it a warning." You ask him which he believes. He smiles faintly. "It depends on what you're listening for." He steps back from the railing and begins to walk along the riverbank. You follow, the soft ground muffling your steps. After a short distance, he stops and points toward a cluster of flat stones half submerged at the water's edge. They are arranged in a crescent, their edges too, regular to be chance. "Folklore says this is where the first gathering happened," he says. "Not the first in the valley, but the first remembered. People came here to speak to the hills, to tell them of the floods and the famine, and to ask what should be done. And the hills answered through the water, through the hum, or so the story goes." You kneel and touch one of the stones. It is slick with algae, but beneath the surface it feels worked, shaped. The spiral in your pocket seems heavier again, and when you rest it briefly on the stone, the hum changes just slightly. A small shift in tone, like a new note joining an old chord. The old man watches you with quiet interest. "That," he says, "is why some things survive when others are forgotten. Not because they are carved in books, but because they are carved in places." You ask if he believes the hills truly speak. He shrugs, but his eyes hold a glint that feels like more than doubt. I believe they remember, and I believe they keep those memories until someone comes along who needs them. He leaves you there, returning toward the bridge with the slow, steady gait of someone who knows every stone of the path. You remain by the water, tracing the crescent with your fingers. The sound of the river is hypnotic. You close your eyes and let it merge with the hum, and soon you begin to sense a pattern, not in words but in rhythm. It is like the slow turning of a wheel, each revolution marked by a subtle change in tone. The spiral stone in your hand feels warmer, its grooves almost alive beneath your thumb. A faint image forms in your mind. The river not as it is now, but as it was long ago, wider, wilder, its banks lined with people holding small carved stones like yours. They stand in a wide circle, their voices rising and falling in time with the hum, the sound carrying out across the water to the waiting hills. You open your eyes, the vision fading, and find the sunlight stronger now, the mist lifting from the surface of the river. The crescent stones gleam wetly, their shapes more defined in the light. You rise and follow the river downstream, noting how the hum fades as you move away from the bend. Soon it is little more than a distant vibration, replaced by the ordinary sounds of running water and wind in the grass. The path leads you back toward the village. As you cross the bridge once more, you pause to look upriver, toward the bend where the voices meet. From here, the sun hill rises beyond it, its slope catching the full morning light, and for a moment it seems to tilt slightly forward, as if leaning closer to listen. Back in the village, life has begun to stir. Doors open, voices call out greetings, the scent of baking bread drifts from somewhere unseen. You slip the spiral stone back into your pocket, feeling its weight as both a comfort and a question. The old man's words stay with you. The valley doesn't speak in answers, it speaks in echoes. And you realize that perhaps every place you visited here, the hills, the tunnels, the plateau, the basin of standing stones, even this bend in the river has been an echo. Together they form something greater, a pattern not meant to be solved quickly, but to be carried, piece by piece, until it becomes clear in its own time. That night, as the village settles into quiet, you think of returning to the river at moonrise. You want to hear the voices meeting for yourself. You want to know whether the song is a welcome or a warning. But for now, you let the thought drift, the hum carrying you towards sleep, patient as the turning of the spiral in your hand. The night is clear when you set out for the river again, hours after the last voices in the village have faded into silence. The air is cool, carrying the faint scent of wood smoke from dying hearths. Above, the moon hangs nearly full, its light spilling over the hills and touching the water with a silver sheen. Each step toward the bend feels deliberate, as though the ground itself is slowing you, urging you to arrive at the right moment. When you reach the bridge, you stop to listen. The hum is already stronger than it was during the day, richer, more resonant, with faint harmonics curling at its edges like threads of light in sound. The river's voice is low and steady, its current pulling softly against the stones below. You cross the bridge without a sound and follow the path down to the crescent of stones the old man showed you. The moonlight spills across them perfectly now, striking their wet surfaces so that each one gleams faintly. You kneel at the center of the curve, placing the spiral stone in your palm. The grooves seem to drink the moonlight, their edges glowing just enough to catch your eye. You close your eyes and let the sounds fold together. The hum from the hills, the whisper of the river, the faint rustle of the grass along the bank. At first they are separate, distinct. Then slowly they begin to blend. The hum deepens, the river's tone brightens, and the grass adds a gentle rhythm, as if all three are part of a single deliberate song. When the shift comes, it is so gradual you almost miss it. The sound doesn't grow louder. It becomes clearer, as though something has tuned the air itself. The hum resolves into a pattern. 3 notes, low, higher, then low again, repeating in a cycle. The river answers each note with its own softer tone, and in the spaces between, you begin to hear something else, a faint layering of voices. They are not like human voices speaking words. They are pure tones, rising and falling with the hum, weaving into the river's reply. You feel them more than you hear them, a resonance inside your ribs that seems to align with the spiral stone in your hand. Images rise unbidden in your mind, the sun hill crowned in bright banners, the moon gleaming under the light of torches, the dragon outlined against a sky heavy with stars. People move between them, carrying small objects that glint in the firelight, stones perhaps, or vessels shaped from something pale and shining. They gather at the river bend, forming a wide circle that mirrors the crescent of stones beneath you now. The tones grow richer, and you sense the hills themselves are speaking, their voices slow and deliberate. The sun's tone is steady and bright, the moon's softer and more fluid, the dragon's deep and grounding. Together they create something whole, something that feels like both a greeting and a warning. You open your eyes. The moonlight has shifted, casting a narrow beam directly onto the center stone of the crescent. The hum swells slightly as the light touches it, and the spiral stone in your palm warms, not hot, but enough to make your skin aware of its presence. For a moment you wonder if this is what the old man meant when he spoke of the voices meeting. It is not a sound you could capture on a recorder or prove with instruments. It is an alignment of elements, the hills, the river, the sky, each playing its part in a design you cannot yet fully see. The voices begin to fade, not abruptly, but as if stepping back into the deeper hum. The river returns to its steady rhythm, the grass to its quiet swaying. You feel the warmth in the spiral stone diminish, leaving only its familiar cool weight. You rise slowly, the damp ground clinging to your knees, and look across the water toward the sun hill. In the moonlight, its slope seems impossibly smooth, its peak catching the light like the edge of a blade. The moon and dragon stand beyond, their shapes half-shadowed, as though watching from a distance. On your way back to the bridge, you notice something you hadn't before, a narrow path branching away from the main track, nearly hidden by tall grass. The hum is faint along it, but there is a different pull, a subtle sense that it leads to something connected to what you've just heard. You follow it for a short distance, the grass brushing against your legs. The path curves and drops slightly toward a stand of trees. In their shadows you see the faint glimmer of stone flat, low, and arranged in a shape you cannot quite make out in the dim light. The hum here is different again, a quieter vibration, as if waiting for the right moment to speak. You crouch and brush your hand over one of the stones. Its surface is marked with a faint carving, another spiral, but this one doubles back on itself, its lines tighter, more complex. The groove is shallow, worn by time, yet it feels intentional. You wonder how many spirals lie scattered through this valley, each holding a fragment of a story no single one can tell. The air shifts, carrying a brief gust of cooler wind from the direction of the river. The hum rises for a single beat, almost like acknowledgement, then returns to its softer rhythm. You stand, brushing the grass from your hands, and make your way back to the main path. By the time you reach the village, the moon is high overhead. The houses are silent, their shutters closed, but the valley itself feels awake, the hum still running steady under the ground. You carry the spiral stone in your hand rather than your pocket, feeling the cool weight against your skin with each step. Back in your room, you set it on the table again, its lines catching the pale light that filters through the window. You sit beside it for a long time, listening not just to the hum, but to the space around it, the silence that shapes it into something more. And you think, as sleep begins to take you, that perhaps the valley has been teaching you its language in pieces. The hills speak, the river answers, the spirals remember. All that remains is to learn how to hear them together. The morning after the moonlit gathering of voices feels different from any other in the valley. It is not brighter or warmer, but it carries a subtle charge, like the lingering vibration after a bell has been struck. You wake slowly, letting the sensation settle into your bones before you rise. The spiral stone sits on the table where you left it, but now, in the pale daylight, its grooves seem deeper, more defined, as if the night's hum had carved them a little further. You step out into the quiet streets. The village is stirring. Someone sweeps a doorstep. A pot clinks against another inside a kitchen. A thin column of smoke curls into the cool air. Yet the pace is unhurried, as though everyone here understands that the valley moves according to its own rhythm, and no one dares to rush it. Your steps take you toward the ridge between the moon and the dragon, a place you have crossed before but never lingered in. Today, the urge is not to climb a peak, but to stand in the space between them, to see if that liminal ground holds a voice of its own. The path is narrow, winding between patches of low brush and small outcrops of stone. The hum follows you, steady but not dominant, like a companion keeping quiet company. As you climb, the valley opens on either side. To your left, the moon's gentle slope catches the sun in soft gold. To your right, the dragon looms darker, its terraces casting long shadows. At the crest of the ridge, the land flattens into a narrow shelf of earth. You stop there, the wind moving gently over the ground. In this place, both hills feel equally close, their tones meeting in the air between them. You stand very still and listen. It begins almost imperceptibly, the blending of two distinct vibrations. The moon's hum is lighter, fluid, almost melodic, while the dragon's is deep and grounding, each note lingering as if reluctant to leave. When they meet, they form a harmony you've not heard before, a resonance that seems to hum inside your chest and behind your eyes at the same time. You take the spiral stone from your pocket and hold it in the space between the two hills. For a moment, nothing changes. Then the hum swells, not louder, but fuller, as though the stone has become a bridge, carrying sound from one hill to the other. The air seems to thicken around you, the wind slowing until it is little more than a whisper. Your mind begins to fill with images, not sharp, but layered, like memories that belong to someone else. You see figures moving across the ridge, carrying objects wrapped in cloth. They stop in the centre, laying the objects on low stone platforms that no longer exist in the visible world. The platforms glow faintly under the sun, and the people stand around them in silence, listening. Then the scene shifts. The sky darkens, the wind rises, and the people move quickly, taking the objects back down the slopes toward the safety of the hills. The glow fades, but the hum remains, steady against the storm. When the vision fades, you realize you're still standing in the same place, the spiral stone warm in your hand. You wonder if this ridge was once a place of exchange, where the energy of the hills met and was transferred, or where something precious was passed from one to the other. You crouch and press your palm to the ground. The soil is cool, but beneath it you feel the faint outline of stone not scattered, but aligned in a pattern you can only partially trace. It runs across the ridge, vanishing into the earth on either side. You think of the buried ring on the plateau, the arc of standing stones in the basin, the crescent by the river, all of them fragments of a greater shape you have yet to see in full. A movement catches your attention. On the slope of the dragon, just below the shadow line, a figure appears, a woman in a long, dark coat, her hair pulled back, standing perfectly still. Even at this distance you feel her gaze. She does not move toward you, nor away. She simply watches. You lift a hand in acknowledgement, but she does not respond. After a few moments she turns and disappears into the shadow of the terraces. You remain on the ridge for a while longer, hoping she might return, but the slopes remain empty. Eventually you begin the descent toward the moon's side. The path curves gently, leading you through a stretch of grass that sways in the light breeze. Here the hum softens again, the moon's voice more dominant, its higher tones curling delicately around you. At the base, you find yourself near the grove that hides the singing room. You hesitate, tempted to go inside, but decide against it. The night's voices are still fresh in your mind, and you want to carry them whole for a while longer before adding to them. Instead, you walk toward the river, following its curve until you can see all three peaks again. From this angle, the ridge where you stood is almost invisible, a narrow seam in the fabric of the land. Yet you know now it holds its own place in the valley's design, a meeting point as important as the hills themselves. The water glints under the midday sun, and the hum runs through it like a hidden current. You rest on the bank, turning the spiral stone over in your hand. It feels heavier now, but not with weight, more with the memory, what you have just felt between the hills. You think about the old woman's map, about the arcs and lines connecting points across the land. You begin to imagine a fourth line, one not marked on her paper, that runs directly between the moon and the dragon, crossing the ridge where their voices meet. And perhaps you think, there are more such crossings, more places where the valley's song changes in ways you've not yet heard. When you finally return to the village, the afternoon is slipping toward evening. The air is warm, the sky streaked with pale clouds, and the smell of baking bread drifts through the lanes. You pass the fountain and pause, letting the sound of the water join the hum in your ears. For a moment it seems to echo the ridge's harmony, the bright note of the moon over the steady tone of the dragon. As the day closes, you sit by your window, the spiral stone beside you. The peaks are dark shapes against the fading light, the ridge between them barely visible now. Yet the memory of standing there remains clear, the feel of the air thickening, the voices meeting in quiet accord. And you realize that perhaps this is how the valley reveals itself, not all at once, but in layers, each harmony leading you to the next. The question, you think, is not whether the valley will give you its whole song, but whether you will be able to hear it when it does. The final morning comes with a softness that feels like farewell. The sky is pale gold at the edges, deepening into blue as the sun rises over the distant mountains. You wake to the gentle murmur of the fountain in the square, the air cool and scented faintly with damp earth and bread baking somewhere nearby. The spiral stone rests on your bedside table, its grooves casting small shadows in the angled light. You step outside and walk slowly through the village, knowing each stone in the path and each turn of the narrow lanes by heart now. The people you pass greet you with quiet nods. There is no rush here, no need for haste, only the steady rhythm of life that matches the hum beneath the ground. Your feet lead you toward the open valley one last time. The sun hill rises ahead, catching the light in its sharp, deliberate slopes. To the north, the moon glows softly in the early brightness, and to the west, the dragon stands in its quiet strength. Between them all lies the network you have come to feel rather than see, the ridges, the arcs, the hidden chambers and tunnels, each singing its part of the valley's song. You pause by the river. The water is calm today, reflecting the sky so perfectly that it feels like a mirror laid between the hills. The bend where the voices meet is still, its crescent of stones darkened by the night's dew. You kneel and place the spiral stone against one of them. The hum rises faintly, not loud, not urgent, just a reminder that it is always there, whether you're listening or not. As you hold it, memories flood in. The terraces under your hands on the sun hill, the smooth stones in the moon slope, the dragon's deep tone in the circle of its crest. The singing chamber's resonance still vibrates in your chest if you think of it too clearly, and the plateau's buried ring presses into your thoughts like a question waiting for an answer. You think of the basin of standing stones, the old woman's carved spirals, the old man's words about echoes, and the moonlit meeting of voices across the water. Every place in the valley has left its mark, each one a thread in a tapestry you're only beginning to understand. The hum has been your guide, pulling you from one point to the next, showing you the connections that exist beyond sight. And you know now that it will continue. Whether you remain or leave is voice patient, unchanging, waiting for others to come and listen. You rise and walk toward the ridge between the moon and the dragon, climbing slowly, savoring each step. From the crest, you can see all three peaks at once, the river threading between them like a silver line in an ancient design. You stand there for a long time, the wind gentle on your face, the hum surrounding you in its full harmony. It strikes you that the valley has never truly given you answers, only invitations. Every stone, every sound, every alignment has been a doorway into a deeper mystery. The truth, if it exists in a single form, is scattered across the land, waiting to be pieced together by those willing to walk, to listen, to feel. As the day moves toward noon, you make your way back down into the village. The square is livelier now, the air filled with quiet laughter, the scent of fresh bread, the clink of mugs on wooden tables. You pass the fountain one last time, laying your hand on its cool stone. The water's fall joins the hum in your ears, the two blending into something whole. Back in your room, you wrap the spiral stone in the cloth the old woman gave you and place it carefully into your bag. It is more than a keepsake. It is a key, though to what you may not discover for years. You look around the room at the plain wooden table, the small bed, the single window framing the sun hill in the distance. Then you step outside and begin the walk that will take you away from the valley. At the edge of the village, you turn for one last look. The hills stand in perfect stillness, yet you feel their gaze as if they are watching you leave. The hum is softer now, fading as you move farther away, but it is still there, like a memory you can call upon whenever you close your eyes. And as you walk on, you think about the others who will come after you, those who will follow the hum, who will stand in the moonlight at the river bend, who will trace the spirals and feel the air shift between the hills. Perhaps they will hear something you did not. Perhaps they will see the pattern more clearly. The valley is patient. It will wait. You know now that what lies hidden here is more than a question of history or geology. It is a question of connection between stone and sky, between past and present, between the earth and those who walk it. And that connection is still alive, still humming, still waiting for someone to hear it. What else might lie hidden, waiting for us to remember? If you've been travelling with me through this story, take a moment to share your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think the hills are natural, or were they shaped by hands long before our time? Have you ever stood in a place that seemed to hum with memory? I'd love to hear your experiences, and if you want more journeys like this, more whispers from forgotten places, more nights under ancient skies, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It helps keep the path open for us to walk together into the next mystery.